Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Texas Christian University. We are so excited that you have decided to spend part of your evening or morning with us, depending on where in the world you're coming to us from. My name is Heath Einstein, and I serve TCU as Dean of Admission. And with me tonight is a very special guest, Dean Ron Pitcock from the John V. Roach Honors College. How are you, Ron?
I'm great tonight, Heath. I'm looking forward to answering some questions and talking about honors.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So, first of all, I love seeing where everyone is coming from. Ron, I don't know if you can see where all of our guests are joining us from tonight, but we've got Melissa from Omaha, we've got Gabrielle from Florida, we've got Amy from Kennedale, which is here in North Texas, Tracy from Illinois, we've got Kendra from Denver, and Kim from Atlanta, and I just love this because it is. And you can back me up on this, Ron, really reflective of the geographic diversity that we see on our campus here at TCU among our student body. So this is really, really exciting. We like to start all of our programs here at TCU with a land acknowledgement. So we respectfully acknowledge all Native American peoples who have lived on this land since time immemorial. TCU especially acknowledges and pays respect to the Wichita and affiliated tribes upon whose historical home our university is located. And about 3 years ago now, the university erected a monument right in the middle of the campus between Jarvis Hall and Reed Hall. And the next time you're on campus, I would really encourage you to spend some time there. It's a beautiful tribute to our Wichita and affiliated tribes. Okay, we do these Facebook Live sessions, as you know, every month. And we've been doing it now for, oh gosh, the better part of this last year. We've talked about campus visits and standardized tests. We talked about scholarship and aid. We've talked about course selection. We've talked about building your resume. We've talked about the college essay. Took a little bit of a break in August so that people could actually have some summertime to themselves. And then we were back at it last month talking about completing the college application. We do these sessions because, well, people seem to like it. They like to hear from us, and they want to know a little bit about the inside scoop from those of us who do this for a living. So we get experts right in front of you, and we want to ask questions. This is as organic as you want to make it. We are real people, it turns out, here at TCU, and so we want you to get to know us. This format, as it has been since the beginning, is unscripted. I'll talk for a few minutes about the John V. Roach Honors College. Dr. Pitcock will also speak for a few minutes from his expert perspective about the college and about why one might do honors. And then we're going to open it up to you for questions. And you can start asking questions now. Anything you'd like to know about honors programs in general at universities, whether it's at TCU or somewhere else, or in particular, the John V. Roach Honors College here at Texas Christian University. You can ask questions on any aspect of admissions. We're going to try to focus our comments tonight about honors, but if we veer into other categories, that's okay too. And we have this scheduled for about an hour. We'll see how it goes. By the way, next month, our session right now is scheduled to be on intercollegiate athletics. So if you are a prospective student athlete or just want to know a little bit more about athletics, Ron, we could have you back for that one too, because you were an athlete way back in the day.
A long time ago, Heath.
A long time ago, not that long ago, but yeah. The other thing I want to mention is we have a special session that the university is doing. This is not just the Office of Admission, but the university will be premiering a program called the College Tour, which was filmed on our campus by Amazon. And there will be an online watch party on Wednesday, the 20th of October. That is 2 weeks hence at 6 p.m. Central Time using Facebook Live. So this very vehicle that you're using right now, if you come back in 2 weeks, you're going to get to see a half-hour show showcasing our campus. It's really cool. I have seen a sneak preview. And afterwards, there'll be a Q&A with actual living, breathing TCU students. Okay, before we get to it, I just want to issue a couple of thank yous. Rob Berline in Alumni Relations, Amy Peterson in Marketing and Communication, and Liz Rainwater from here in the Office of Admission. They are all working behind the scenes to make sure that we are able to do this. So thank you all. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the John V. Roach Honors College. First, I'm just going to give you some of the basics about the admission process. When you apply for admission to the university, and whether you choose to apply by our November 1 early decision or early action deadline, or our February 1 early decision 2 or regular decision deadline, you will have the option, the opportunity to also apply for admission to the John V. Roach Honors College. Once you submit your application, we will provide for you a confirmation email, which will include instructions on how to log into the student portal, where you check your application status. In there, you will find a link to the application for honors. And if you choose to submit an application, typically those decisions from the Honors College will come back to you about 4 to 6 weeks after the offer of admission comes, depending on when in the cycle you apply. There are 2 additional essays that you will need to complete in order to apply for honors. Everyone must fill out question number 1. And that question is asking you to identify a problem or an area of study that you want to explore just because it's personally meaningful to you. We want to get to know what matters to you, basically. And then there's a second question, and there are actually 3 prompts, and you have to just choose one. One is about experiences, backgrounds, and identities that would contribute to the diverse range of perspectives at TCU. The second prompt asks, what person, past or present, would you like to invite to be a speaker at TCU? Because we have lots of speakers on campus all the time. And then the third one, which is kind of fun, is write a note to a future friend in Milton Daniel Hall, because you're going to live as a incoming first-year student in honors in Milton Daniel Hall, and it's a honors at TCU is a curricular and co-curricular experience. There's a residential component to it too. So the essay will ask you to do that. Just to put some numbers behind it, roughly 10% of the first-year class at TCU right now is comprised of students in the John V. Roach Honors College. So that gives you some sense of scale at the university. Now, why might honors be attractive to you? I like to explain it in this way, and a lot of what I share I stole directly from Ron Pitcock, so you can give him credit for anything I'm going to say. But as I've watched students over the years come through our program, the admission process, and then enter the college, the honors college, what's clear to me is that honors college students aren't just students who are getting good grades. Yes, you have to have good grades in order to get in, but it goes beyond that. We are looking for students who have a genuine love of learning. And so how do you know if you have a love of learning? If you're the kind of person who, let's say you're assigned a homework assignment and you start at 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden it's 2 in the morning because you have found yourself just going through that Wikipedia rabbit hole, clicking on one link to the next, and before you know it, you've sort of lost track of time because you're just loving what you're learning, having nothing to do maybe with the eventual outcome of the assignment. We are looking for people who are just thirsty for knowledge. You're probably all familiar with Henry David Thoreau, the 19th century transcendentalist. Ron, you'll like this because you're an English professor by trade. So in his famous work, Walden, Thoreau says, very famous line, "I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life." Honors college students at TCU want to suck out all of the marrow of TCU. If you're the kind of person who loves learning and wants to be on our campus and be involved in everything that there is to be involved with, then honors is going to be right for you. 80% of honors college students study abroad. We have a lot of our students study abroad in general. Roughly, 30, 35% of all TCU students will study abroad. That's a big difference when 4 out of every 5 honors students are studying abroad. So I'll leave it at that. And pass the baton over to my dear friend and colleague, Dean Ron Pitcock. Ron, what have you to share with us tonight?
Thank you, Heath. And I just want to say what an honor it is to be here and to have the chance to talk about the Honors College. I'm fired up about this. There's nothing I love more than having the chance to talk about honors and what faculty do in the college and what the students are doing in the college. I think one of the things that's really helpful for people to understand is, like, when you visit colleges or universities and you talk about honors, you hear similar language. You'll hear great professors, small classes, And I think that's true at all of these universities. I have colleagues who teach at honors colleges across the United States. We all teach, they're all great teachers. They all teach small classes. I think where the differences exist are in how the honors colleges are situated within the university. At some universities, honors colleges are set up to be the liberal arts experience at a large university. That's not the case here. What we do at TCU is we want our honor students to be engaged throughout the entire campus. And I think that's really important to understand. We want honors to be something that you do, that you care about, but we also want you to be engaged and be a leader across the entire university. And that's important. So like honors is there, it's part of your being, but it's not all of your being. We want you to be engaged throughout the entire campus. Another thing that I think it's really important, there are a lot of myths out there about honors college, and we talk about these all the time with parents and with students. But an honors college at TCU, we're not about extra work. So what makes an honors class is not that you're taking an extra test or that you're writing 30 more pages than somebody who's not in an honors class. What makes an honors class is an extra rigor. So, I don't teach to haze really smart students. Like, we love working with students. We try to design our classes to engage and support those students. So we're not trying to make things harder and trying to make the lives of students. The other thing that we're not about is extra courses. So the hours it takes to graduate for a student who's not in the honors college are the same it takes for a student who is in honors to graduate. So it's not extra courses. And I guess the most important thing that kind of summarizes everything, being an honors, the honors college at TCU, honors classes are more about quality than it is quantity. About the quality of the engagement, the quality of the mentorship, than it is about extra work, extra paper, extra books. We're probably, and I think you said it really well earlier, Heath, we're interested in highly motivated students. It's because highly motivated students are the best students for honors. It's not always the highest academic student. So that's kind of what we're looking for when we talk about honors college. And then within, like, what is honors at TCU? And I saw somebody asked a question about tiers. Probably the best way to understand honors academically at TCU is to break it into categories. So we have lower division, which is the first 2 years, and then we have upper division, which are the last 2 years. What's cool about the first 2 years is you get to take 5 classes, and these 5 classes help you move through your core, your common core here at TCU. These classes are designed to help you maybe move into your major, into your minor. But they're classes that are about helping you think about the world in interesting ways. And I'll tell you, 2 of the classes that we ask students to take are cultural visions classes. And these are classes that are doing just really, really cool things. And I'll give you an example. I have a colleague that teaches a course on video games. And her name's Dr. Sierra. And Dr. Sierra this semester has students studying representations of Native American cultures and indigenous tribes in the class, and they're looking at how these play in the classroom and in these games. And I was in there the other day, and the students are studying the games as they're on the screen. But what's really neat about the work is what the students are doing is not taking a test. They're actually designing an exhibit that will then go into the National Video Game Museum that's in Frisco, Texas. And I know there are people from Frisco, Texas in the audience, but there's a big museum there. And our students are going to actually design an exhibit, and then it's going to be placed into that museum for the next year. And there's going to be a big celebration about the work the students are doing. It could be a class on cultural memory where students are studying the memory of 9/11 or studying Disney and how Disney is a cultural memory making institution. It could be a class that looks at like life design, or a class that looks at like this next semester we have a class that's looking at the Hunger Games and Harry Potter and talking about dystopian literature. The classes are interesting classes. You're not going to find classes like these anyplace else in the U.S. because they reflect the madness of the professor who's teaching them. And that's the fun part. And that's why students love these classes. They don't miss these classes because they're just so much fun, and they're just out there, but they soak it up. And it's not the class that's going to test you. It's the class that's going to really make you think, and it's going to ruin your DNA. The other thing I would just say, then, that's lower division, 5 classes in 2 years. All of them help you move through your core. And the last 2 years, our students have a choice. And some students, Heath, decide they want to be a researcher. And so they, over the course of the last 2 years, they work with the faculty mentor and they write a thesis and they present this thesis, they defend it. And a lot of that work that students produce is like a master's level quality because it's not a term paper they've rushed off in 30 days. It's or a week. It's an actual 2-year process, a year and a half process of work between the student and the faculty member. Other students decide that they're not researchers. They want to have big debates and questions. So they'll take a series of colloquia, like 3 colloquia. And these are, again, crazy classes, but these are classes that actually we have universities from around the nation coming to us to understand what are these classes, how do you teach them, what do they look like. And so, right now I have 2 colleagues, Dr. Wendy Williams and Dr. Frederick Gooding Jr., who are teaching a class called City as Text. And every Friday afternoon, they take students out into Fort Worth to study the cultures that make up our city and to think about how the city is organized and what does that tell us and what does that teach us. So the students are walking through neighborhoods and parts of the city to understand how the city tells us a story and what that story is. I teach a class called Giving, and it's a class where the students give away $100,000. And the students study 140 nonprofits, but at the end of the year, at the end of the semester, they debate and they can give money to no more than 5. But what's fun about these classes is the work. And what you need to understand is like the students don't mind the work because they're so committed to it. So in that class on the last night, they'll debate for the last year, the class started at 3 in the afternoon and the final debate finished at like 1:45 in the morning. And I guess that's what I want you to understand about, and I'm going to talk more about other classes as we go through the night, I hope. But in all of our classes, the students are committed. But their commitment is not to the grade, it's to the quality of the experience and the quality of what they're learning. And what honors should do for you is it should be a distinctive. And so when all of our when our students graduate, the feedback we get is when they're in an interview, if someone's looking at their resume and they want to talk to them and they're asking them questions, more often than not, they want to talk about an honors class they've taken, because the honors class is the outlier. It's the thing that doesn't make sense, and they want to hear them discuss it. So it's not uncommon to have a student say that, the honors experience is what helped me get this job. That's what we want to discuss. And that's in a nutshell. I have so much more to say, but I talk a lot.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate you giving the perspective, of the mad professor. That's because that's you. We've seen you in action. And I think a lot of the people who are watching right now are probably really excited about the possibility of taking classes with you and your colleagues. We have amazing professors all over TCU, of course, across the disciplines. But in particular, the Honors College is really special. So let's get to some questions. We've got a bunch of good ones, and I want to get through as many as we can this evening. So please feel free to continue to ask questions as we roll along. Bradley asks, is it possible to be a part of the Honors College while balancing extracurriculars? And the answer is absolutely yes. I think what you'll find is some of the most engaged students on our campus are those who are in the Honors College. It's almost like the being stimulated in the classroom and in the residence hall setting sort of catalyzes the entire TCU experience for these students. Haven't you seen that, Ron?
Sure. Yeah. Bradley, it's a great question to ask, because our honor students, goes to something I said earlier, our honor students, we want them to be leaders on campus. So, when you look at Student Government Association, a large percentage of that group of the student government is made up of honor students. And when you look at student body leaders, a number of them are honor students. If I go to this Friday, next Friday, I'm going to go to see a play over in the Department of Theater. A number of the students, including the lead, are honor students. If I go to a football game like I did last weekend, I can look down on the field, and when I look on the field, in the band, I see honor students, cheerleaders, honor students, dance squad, honor students, the people in the purple and white trousers who are leading the audience in cheers and doing crazy things. They're honor students. The student holding a camera is an honor student. Even the person without their shirt on, painted purple, going crazy on the Jumbotron is an honor student. And sadly, I know them by name and have them in class. So it's really, the students are really engaged on campus, and we want you to be involved. You're coming to an incredible university, and we think honors is an important aspect of that experience at TCU, but you need to maximize the entire university. And that means, being an honor student is important, but we want you to be engaged everywhere else to have a real impact on what's happening on this campus.
Wonderful. Okay, Jay Dunn asks, how are honors applicants selected? So I'll start by saying that we actually changed this process just a couple of years ago. It used to be that we in the Office of Admission would go through all of the applicants who had been admitted to the university, look at their academic credentials, and send out invitations based only on that. And then we thought, there's probably a better way to do this. And actually, it was the folks over in honors who suggested to us, we'd like to be more active in the selection process because we think that there's probably a better way to identify the students who, to the point we were both talking about earlier, aren't just honors caliber by grades alone, or other things that we could see on the application, but rather students who raise their hands and say, this is important to me. And so we made it something that students would self-select, would actually submit an application for. And so the decision now for honors really rests with the honors faculty. And Ron, do you want to explain a little bit how that works, the evaluation process?
Sure. So I think what's really important here, one major important piece is that every student who applies to TCU is invited to apply to the John V. Roach Honors College. And that's significant because I think we want students to understand we're looking for highly motivated students. So a student who applies to the college writes two essays, and Heath talked about these prompts earlier in the session. But what happens with these two essays are they go into a bank and faculty read these essays, and they're blind reads. So we don't know who you are, who the applicant is. We don't know the applicant's name. We know nothing about the applicant, but the faculty read the essays. They evaluate the essays for content. They evaluate the essays for organization. How clear is the writing? Because writing is a really good determinant about a student's ability to succeed in college and to be a successful honors student. It's after those evaluations happen with the essays that then we start looking at scores on the essays and to see how they line up. And then we start looking at students and what their GPAs are. But the essays really are a prime determinant in who gets into honors and who doesn't. So, somebody earlier asked, what advice do we have? Take the essays seriously. They matter. And I think that it's possible for a student to go to a high school and have a 3.5, but actually be a better honor student because they know what it's like to fail, and because they've taken a certain type of class and they've learned from those classes and experiences. They may be better for honors than the student who's just kind of sailed through school and not thought about why they have a 4.0 or learned lessons from it. So the essays really matter, and they require you to be a reflective person.
Thank you. Okay, that actually dovetails nicely into a question that Incred April, I love that. That's so cool. Great Instagram handle. Incred April asks, how do transfer students get into the honors college? So I guess I would broaden that a little bit to say, can you speak about the multiple entry points? Because we've focused primarily right now on those students who are coming out of high school, knowing that they're interested in honors, submitting the application through the portal. But what about those other entry points?
Sure. I'm going to talk about transfers first, because that's Incred April's question, and it is a nice handle. But if you're a transfer student and you come to TCU, we want you to come to TCU. We want you to get off to a good start. But once you finish 12 graded hours at TCU, then you can apply to the college. And every fall, we have a process, and we publicize it on our website for current students at TCU or for transfer students. And the process is very similar to what the first year process is. You're required to attend a meeting to learn about honors. Then you are given access to the application. You're going to write 2 essays, and we have faculty who give a blind read to those essays. And we use the faculty feedback to determine whether or not a student is admitted to the college. The same process then exists for current students at TCU. And I think this is really important. And Heath, I think this is actually a distinctive for our college. It's pretty uncommon that a student could come to TCU, not be in the honors college, but then earn their way into the honors college. And I love that because I can say that when I started college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. In fact, when I graduated college, I never wanted to be a professor. So like, we don't know what we want to do always, but I do think it's possible for a student who could struggle through high school, come to college and all of a sudden discover that thing that makes them want to get up and get excited about learning. They find their mojo. And then all of a sudden they're like, I want to be in honors because I know I have this thing I'm passionate about studying. So a student who comes to TCU and discovers that can apply to the college, but it's the same process. They have to have 12 graded hours. They're going to go to a required meeting. We do this process every semester, fall and spring. They're going to write 2 essays. Faculty are going to evaluate those essays. And then on the basis of the essays and those other pieces of information, we'll extend invitations.
And don't you love the determination of the students who maybe applied to honors as a high school senior entering TCU, didn't get in, but still persisted and earned their way in afterwards? I mean, aren't those students amazing?
Those students are incredible. And I love having those students in class because they have real grit. It's sometimes what I really admire about those students is that they care enough that they want to come and they want to show themselves, and they're determined to earn it. And then when they get it, I love watching them make the most of the experience. And it's really rewarding to see those students. And I think that's, what you're talking about, Heath, is really important because no admissions process is perfect. And so it's nice to see a student come to TCU and then prove us wrong. And I enjoy that.
Absolutely. Okay, Jennifer Tucker Jenkins asks, if accepted into the Honors College, is it mandatory to stay in the Honors College dorm? The answer, Jennifer, is yes. The expectation is all of our first-year honors students will live in Milton Daniel Hall. It's a big part of the experience. Ron, can you talk about what happens in Milton Daniel?
Yeah. Well,
the G-rated version.
Yeah. So parents, I always joke because sometimes we get asked this question by someone and they'll follow this up with, well, my student's isn't a typical honor student. And I'm always like, well, what's a typical honor student? What I want to say is honor students at TCU they're engaged throughout the entire campus. And I can go through all sorts of organizations, religious and spiritual life, student government, Greek organizations, and you're going to find honor students in all of them. And it's amazing to have those students start in their first year in Milton Daniel Hall. And what I want people to understand is Milton Daniel Hall has a lot of fun. Those students, in fact, they just had that group made a TikTok video that went completely viral. And everyone's like, Milton Daniel is the best hall because the students are having a great time. They also know then when to study. More importantly, they know when to respect one another. And I think what happens is they develop a really intense, supportive community. And then the students, they get off to a quick start. And so it's not a cutthroat community. The students are motivating each other to get involved, and they're supporting each other through applications. And so those students become change makers on campus very early in their careers. And then the thing I want you to understand is after that first year, we want you to move out of Milton Daniel. Like we want you living in the Greek. We want you living in the residence halls that are right outside my window because we want you to make a huge impact on the entire campus. And I guess the last piece that I think that's really interesting, I don't think you know this, Heath, but we did a study of the past 10 years of the past 10 years of alumni who have been in honors. And one of the 2 most important factors they identified to their honors experience, number 1 was mentoring. Number 2 was their Milton Daniel community. Because they build these lifelong connections in that residence hall that move beyond 4 years, and they become something that is very significant to their lives after college.
That's great. That is a great statistic to know, and I'm going to try to file that away. Okay, Sarah Scott asks, if you apply to the school by November 1st, is the honors college application due by November 1st as well, or is the due date November 15th? The answer is the latter. we give students 2 weeks latitude. So you have up to 2 weeks after the deadline. So not only would that be true for those students applying in our early round, but if you apply by February 1st for either early decision round 2 or regular decision, you'll have until February 15th to complete the honors supplement. And the reason for that is because you're not going to see the link until you apply. And if you choose to submit your application on, let's say, October 29th, it wouldn't give you a whole lot of time if the deadline were only 3 days later to put together thoughtful essays, 2 essays, each of approximately 500 word length. So yes, you'll have that extra time in order to do that. Okay, Chandler asks, what is the application process like for the Honors College Student Ambassador Program? So Ron, can you talk a little bit about what our student ambassadors in honors do, and then a little bit about what we're looking for?
Sure. We have a group of students who are ambassadors within the Honors College, and they're all leaders on campus. But what they do for us is, one, they provide us feedback on what's happening in honors, but they also provide tours to students on campus. So when a student comes and they want to talk about the Honors College, they'll also have the opportunity to sit down with ambassadors and talk to them about their experiences, to get a tour on campus. They do a whole set of sort of like events for us. So they'll work events where they'll meet people. It's a cool opportunity for students to kind of get leadership experience on campus. And then the process is actually run by a staff member in our college, Colby Birdsell, who I'm just going to shout out is on leave this semester because she just had her second child, and we're big fans of the new member in the honors family. But it's an online application, and the application asks for students to talk about their college experience, to reflect on their TCU experience, and we're trying to understand, how would the student talk about honors, and how would they convey what their experience has been in courses? What would it be like for this student to talk to future students and to families?
Great. Several questions have come in about doing honors, being part of the Honors College with particular majors, and where that might be potentially more challenging, or is it more challenging? Specifically, one person asked about nursing, someone else asked about musical theater, and those are great examples of highly structured programs. And so I think the basic question is, do we exclude any majors? And the answer is, honors is open to any major. But could maybe, Ron, you give some advice to students who already know they're interested in programs that are highly structured and maybe have less wiggle room for that elective space?
Sure. And I see Kim's question on here, and thank you to Kim and everybody else for asking this question, because it's a really smart question to ask. One, we have students from all majors in the Honors College. So I heard nursing. We have a lot of nursing majors who are in honors. Business, we have a lot of business majors who are honors. Science, we have a lot of majors. They're all over. But you're right when you highlight certain majors are more structured than others. And this brings up a major feature in the college, because if you're in a major that's more structured, that means you need to kind of be thinking 4 years, thinking about 4 years when you come in, and thinking about, how am I going to organize honors and all these things I want to do. And that brings up one of the greatest features of the Honors College, which is our advising team. If you're an Honors College student, you have an additional academic advisor. So you'll have an advisor in your major. So if you're nursing, you'll have a nursing advisor. But because you're honors, you also have an Honors College advisor. And our Honors College advising team, they're some of the best advisors on campus, and they will sit down with students. They'll look at they'll look at the courses they're taking. They'll help them start planning and thinking about how they can achieve all that they want to achieve. So if you're a nursing student, you're going to want to know your honors advisor really early. And then you're going to want to talk to them. And and the moment you say to them, I'm a nursing student, how do I do honors? They have the answer. So you're not going to have to spend hours trying to figure it out, because they're going to be pretty well practiced in how to figure this out. And I just want to share, the 5 advisors, Marie Martinez, Jess Price, Donna Schonerstedt, Justine Grace, and Tori Couch are, some of them were former honor students at TCU who have come back because they're committed about working with students. But they are an incredibly professional, responsible, and terrific bunch. Today, I watched a group, I've probably watched 50 students come in and out of our office to meet with advisors.
Terrific. Ron, Caitlin Provost, that's a familiar name. She asked, can you talk to us about study abroad opportunities within honors? So maybe highlight cultural roots, which you've done for a long time. I don't know if there are plans to do a frog camp, honors frog camp this summer.
Yeah.
But just generally speaking, what are some study abroad experiences within the college?
Sure. So, and we're going to preface this with, COVID-19 has really, thrown a curveball at us in terms of what we like to do with study abroad, and we're looking forward to the days when we get to reboot and have the sort of honors experiences that we love having. But earlier they talked about the high percentage of honor students who study abroad, and a lot of those students study abroad during a semester. And they travel all throughout the world, and it's because TCU has a phenomenal Center for International Studies, and they get a lot of support to do semester study abroads. Within honors itself, though, and we'll get back to this when we have a chance to do this, when COVID-19 allows us to have these sorts of experiences, but we have unique honors abroad experiences. And when we talk about honors abroad, what we're talking about is taking small groups of students on experiences where where the cities are the texts. So we tend not to spend time in the classrooms, but the cities and the locations we're seeing are the places that we're studying. So I have a colleague, Dr. Wendy Williams and Michael Strauss, a professor in political science, took a group of students to Japan. And when they were in Japan, they studied resilience, they studied recovery. They talked about historical sites of disaster. They looked at where they did agrotourism and worked on a farm not far from the power plant that melted down. The students had this phenomenal experience, but it was about engaging and meeting people and connecting with them. Right before the pandemic, we had an experience that went to study hip hop in Australia that was going to be taught by Dr. Frederick Gooding Jr. And then you mentioned one that I get to lead, and I led it for 11 years straight, and it was called Cultural Roots. And what we would do is we'd backpack through Germany, Switzerland, and Italy. And the whole point of it was to study public memory. And the students, some people talk about like Amazing Race, but it's not. There's no contest. It's not dangerous. But the students are having to explore and push themselves to understand how the city works, and in the process, getting to meet people. So it could be, and this has happened, students would go to the Berlin Wall. And as they're there and they're studying this and they're trying to figure out how this worked and what did that look like, they'll bump into someone whose life was shattered by that wall. And they'll meet someone who, happened to be spending the night on the side of the wall while their family was on the other side. And as a result of that, they didn't see their family for years. So they get that first person narrative, that first person experience. And, I set up a lot of those opportunities on these experiences, but that's happening on all of these honors abroad experiences. And that's what we want students to get. They tend to be 3 to 4 weeks. They're very intense. They are not party trips. We work students hard, but the students come back and talk about these in very romantic but intensive learning ways.
Not partying, but a lot of gelato is consumed on cultural roots.
There's a fair amount of gelato. I mean, if you're going to Italy, you need to do an exhaustive study of the gelato industry. It's important.
Yeah, that's true.
It's essential.
Robert asks a fantastic question, because we've spent a lot of time talking through what are the benefits of the honors college from an experiential standpoint as a current TCU student. What about the benefits, thinking about outcomes? What are the benefits of graduating from the honors college?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robert. So one of the things that we talk about with honor students is we're trying to enhance the already great undergraduate education you're getting at TCU. We're trying to amplify it. And so my assumption is you're going to choose a major. Maybe it's 2 majors, but we want to work a different part of your brain than the majors may be working. And a good example is this. I've worked with a number of business students, and they are phenomenal students. Our Neely School of Business does a great job of training those students. But those students benefit when they take a course like empathy or they take a course like witchcraft and witch hunts, because it's working a different part of their brain and it's challenging them to think in in ways differently than their major has trained them. It also forces the students to imagine the connective tissue that actually may link what they're studying in their major to what they're seeing in the colloquium or in their honors class. And that connective tissue piece, that's the fun part of college. Like that's the piece that you can't let go of. And that's the piece that when class is over, you're as you're walking back to your residence hall, you just can't get over it. And so when you get back to the residence hall, you type your professor. I joke, Robert, that I want students to I want to ruin students' lives, and I mean that in the best sense, in the best way possible. And here's why. Um, I'll teach a class, and one project will have students look at movies, but I want to change how they think about, how they talk about, how they evaluate movies. To this day, probably at least, I don't know, once every 2 weeks, I get a text or an email from an alum. Sometimes it's a student who took my class 15 years ago. And they're like, hey, you ruined my life because I went to this movie. I went with friends. They all thought it was great. And I spent 2 hours telling them why it was such a bad movie. And I just, thank you for doing that to me. But like, this is what we want. We want for you to live a life that is about learning. And we want you to live a life that is not about an occupation, but it is about a higher quality of living that impacts the lives of others. Um, and this is just me speaking. I believe you have a purpose, and I believe every student has a purpose, and that students are purpose driven, and we need to discover that. And Honors College will push you to consider what and to reimagine the possibilities for what your life could look like. And when Honors is firing in all cylinders, that's what we're doing for students, in addition to helping you be successful.
You're firing me up, Ron. Is it possible for me to take Honors College courses?
Anytime, Heath. You're always welcome.
Excellent. Okay. Amy asks, is there an in-person interview as well? We do not have an interview as part of the selection process for the Honors College. We have too many students who apply for honors. We would not be able to accommodate every student. And so to be fair, we just don't have that as part of the process. But actually, and if you'll allow me to just sort of go a little bit off script here for a minute and deviate from Honors College, as part of the admission process to the university as a whole, we eliminated interviews this year. And we did that primarily for two reasons. So Ron, I don't even know if you know this. Maybe you do. We eliminated the interview for two reasons. Number one, we found as we looked back at the data that the students who were requesting interviews of us were students for whom TCU was their top choice already, or maybe was one of their top two choices. And so they were using the interview as a way to demonstrate additional interest in TCU when we have other ways of knowing that you're interested in TCU. So we felt like that probably wasn't the best use of the students' time or the best use of our time. But there's a second point, and that is there's an equity issue, because the students who were choosing to reach out to us to request interviews were typically students who come from well-resourced schools where they have access to high-quality counselors. And we didn't want to create an even more unlevel playing field than already exists. And so we eliminated interviews this year. We, of course, are still here for our students, and we want to talk to you. And if you have questions of us, you are welcome to connect with your assigned admission counselor. But we just wanted to make sure that the process is as fair as possible. There are some programs like our Chancellor Scholars program or the Community Scholars program where there is an interview component, but that's on a much smaller subset of our students, and everyone is sort of on a level playing field there. Okay, let's move on to the next question. There are actually sort of a couple of questions that go back to the Milton Daniel thing. Which is, what if I'm involved in something else that requires me to live somewhere else? So we have students who are student athletes at TCU, our student who are in the John V. Roach Honors College. Dr. Pitcock, are Honors College athletes living in Milton Daniel Hall, or are they living elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the coach, the program, and the it depends on the coach, the program, the sport. but I think most of our athletes tend to live with their teams, and we provide a process to make sure that students get to live with their teams. For a lot of those students, that's where their scholarships coming from, and we want to make sure that we're supporting students and helping them be successful. So in that case of an athlete, most of them tend to live in the residence hall, which is often right next to Milton Daniel Hall. So they're in close proximity to honor students.
Ron, we talked about the abroad experience for our students, and I think it's so critical. First of all, I'm just a huge proponent of studying abroad, largely because my single regret from college is that I didn't do it.
Mine
So
too.
I don't, yeah, and I don't want people to make the same mistakes that we made. But beyond that, baked into the DNA of TCU, literally in our mission, we talk about creating students who are part of this global community. So there's another way to look at that, and that is with our international students. And Kristen Queen asks, hi, Kristen, are there international students in the Honors College?
Yes. Yes, we have, and in fact, it's a growing population of honors students that are coming to the honors, of international students who are coming to the honors college, and we love having those students in class because they bring a really interesting perspective to the learning experience. And I'll give you a really good example. Last fall, I taught my class in person, and I had a student in there from Vietnam, and it was a class where we studied cultural memory and how communities shape memory, and so we talked a lot about in that class about Confederate memorials. We talked about Oklahoma City bombing, but she brought to the class a knowledge that was fascinating, which was how Vietnam remembers the Vietnam War. And it was just such a cool moment because she kind of took over the class, and everybody in the class was invested in her final project. Her name was Tram, but like Tram kind of showed us in her project a memory that we don't talk about here in the United States, and it was meaningful, it was emotional, and it had a huge impact on the class. It helped us see something that we never would have seen had she not been in the class. So we love our international students, and we love the fact that population is growing even more in the college.
We have a couple of questions, Ron, that deal with advising. So I'll read them both to you because I think they touch on similar themes. One is, will the Honors College help an undecided major find the right fit for a course of study? And so maybe talk about honors advising in addition to an advisor that a student would have anyway through their academic discipline. And then there's a second question, which is when life happens and honors GPA starts to slip below 3.85, can you talk about that process? So we don't leave students on islands by themselves, right? So talk about the kind of support that from an academic standpoint that the Honors College will provide.
Sure. I'll take the first question here that's talking about undecided majors. And we love undecided majors. They're some of the most exciting students to work with because they have all these ideas about what they want to do. Honors will, we will work with that student, and our advisors would love to sit down with that student and talk about what are their interests, what are their possibilities, what are ways to begin exploring majors. Maybe even help them understand who they should go talk to begin exploring the major. So we will, our advisors are more than happy to meet with the student and to help them with that process of getting the student to choose what they think their major is. And I'll just speak, I've watched this firsthand with a student who came in as an undecided major, ended up discovering two majors, and then the advising team helped them figure out how to make two majors actually 2 degrees. Our advising team is very patient and very thoughtful. They're not trying to move students through like a check the box, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. They'll talk to the student and they'll listen carefully to the student and try to help the student figure out what questions they need to ask and then what questions they need to answer. And then I guess the other piece that they're asking, first of all, 3.85 is a great GPA. 3.7 is a phenomenal GPA. But life does happen, and honors GPAs do slip. In the John V. Roach Honors College, we actually adjust for this. So after the first year to stay in honors, we want a student to have a 3.0. And then after the second year, we want a student to have a 3.25. Third year is a 3.4, and then to graduate from honors is a 3.5. Because we want to allow for a student to make a mistake. We want to allow for a student to have difficulty in classes and then to figure out how to correct that. But if your student's having difficulty and your student doesn't know, what's going wrong in a class, by all means, our advising team is here to support students. We care. TCU as a university cares deeply about student success, and they're investing a lot of support, tutoring into student success. I think our advising team and what we do in honors is part of that story, and we're here to help and try to support students when life happens, because we know it does.
Sure does. Gabby asks, is TCU test optional for fall 2022 applications? Also, does the Honors College include arts such as fashion and journalism? So I'll take the first part of that question. And that is, yes, we are test optional as a university for fall 22 applications. So students who are entering in the fall 22 term, that would be current high school seniors, as well as the fall 23 entering class. So current high school juniors. And we're in the process of evaluating the efficacy of our test optional policy, and will at some point come to a determination of, as to whether that's a permanent policy. That goes for the Honors College too. We have first-year TCU students who are in the John V. Roach Honors College who were admitted without our evaluating their standardized test scores. For the second part of the question, and we did talk earlier about how all majors are represented in the college. But I'm curious, are there Honors College classes that are taught across the curriculum as well? Like, could someone have an honors interior design class or an honors physics class or something like that? Like, how exactly is that determined?
Yes, we have a number of what they're called honors electives, and students take those during their first 2 years. And they are courses across the curriculum. So it could be a course in journalism. It could be a course in fashion merchandising. It could include a course in dance. So we have courses across the curriculum, but it varies from semester to semester because we're collaborating and partnering with colleges across the entire university. And so we're having to work with them to create spaces where professors can teach these classes. But I'm going to guess, I haven't done the count, but I'm going to guess we have something like 90 to 100 courses that are taught throughout the year that are coming from departments outside of honors, but they're good partners with us. And then in terms of Honors College, I just want to say we have a number of fashion students and journalism students who are honors. I have a student who graduated last year who is now the press secretary. She was a journalism major. She's press secretary for a candidate that's running for governor in a state. And I have a student who was fashion merchandising, and she's now in Dallas, and she graduated last year. She's in Dallas, and she's working for a sandal company, and I'm not going to mention their name because I don't get paid to mention their name, but she's loved their
job. That actually got me thinking. So this is a Heath Einstein question, not submitted by anyone, but perhaps some people are wondering. We talked earlier about how the Honors College will evaluate applicants for admission to the college based on their essays. What do you do with students who are really bright and inquisitive and have done well, and maybe writing just isn't their strength? They may be fine writers, but their writing might not pop. They might pop in other ways. Do you account for that? Or is it, no, writing is such a big part of honors, you have to be a strong writer? How do you deal with that?
Thank you for asking that question. When faculty evaluate essays, we are looking at them for quality of writing, but we're also looking for the ideas. So, sometimes a student may not be the best writer, but the essay reveals what I would call a live mind. They're asking interesting questions, and they're trying to answer the questions in interesting ways. So one part of the evaluation is to kind of describe the thinking that's happening in the essay, which can be done separately from the words and the sentence structure. It can be about, is this the sort of student, the way they think, is this the person that you want in the classroom? Are they going to make the classroom a better place? So it's a combination of what you're talking about, Heath, and it's also a combination about writing. And frankly, I think the piece that you're talking about is more important, because you have to be able to think and you have to be able to reflect. And we want to see problem solving. We can teach you to be a better writer. We have resources on campus. We have a phenomenal writing center that is here to help students become better writers. But it's that mind, it's that thinking piece. What you're talking about in the essay that's going to make you a valuable participant in the class.
Okay. We have one last question because we're coming up against the hour. I can't believe how fast this flew. I know. So Kim asks, is it possible to do a dual major and be in the honors program? So can you be an honors college student and be a double major at TCU? You can do it all, right?
You can't do it all, but you can come close. I'll tell you that I've known multiple students who not just have done double majors, but actually completed double degrees and had full lives on campus where they were involved in Greek life. They were involved in clubs. They did all sorts of things. I've actually known a student that graduated with 4 degrees, and they came in with a lot of hours, but they came in and they completed 4 degrees. They were on the dance squad. So we have a lot of students that are double majors. It's pretty common to have students in our college who are double majors.
You even told me once, I think, or this is years ago, and that this is sort of a related or almost a question that sort of mirrors that last one, which is you described earlier the departmental versus university honors.
Right.
And we do have those ambitious students who will actually do both of those things. I want to say it was like 10% or less of honors students do that, because that would be a lot of work. But you've worked with those students, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. We have a lot of students who they want to do both. They want to do research, and they also want the classes. And I guess that's the that's the takeaway about honor students and why I love working with honor students, because they want to find ways so they can get the most out of their experience at TCU and get the most out of it in 4 years. And so they're going to do everything they can to figure out a way that they can take 3 colloquia, because they want to take a class in giving, or they want to take a class in happiness that's taught by that's co-taught by an honors professor who's in economics and an honors professor who's an anthropologist. And by the way, they also both happen to be married to each other. Students want to be in that class. They want to take a class on Beyonce and intersectionality, because they know that class is going to study Beyonce lyrics, but then also there's going to be this class period where they dance to talk about intersectionality. So our students, they want to do everything possible because they see the value. And it goes back to the very beginning, what we were talking about. It's not the college isn't a box checking culture. It is very much about quality and what students are taking away from this and how they're going to be different. One of my favorite parts of the year, Heath, is at the end of the year when students graduate as honors laureates. They sign this massive book, and I know you've seen it. The book weighs about 150 pounds, and I lift it for exercise because it's right outside my office here. But one of the things that I love is the students, when they graduate, they choose a professor who hoods them on stage, and it's not a cattle call graduation. It's a real meaningful moment. The professor hoods them. They walk across the stage. The chancellor shakes their hand, and then they walk to the great book. And it's a big purple leather book, and there are enough pages in there to get us to through the next probably 400 years. But it's meaningful because the students sign themselves out of the college, and it's what I love is the student who signs that book is a very different person than the student who came to TCU for orientation. And the student who signs that book talks about learning in these high quality ways, and the learning and how it's changed them, and the mentorship that they've had in the college is is a result of the high impact experiences and the teachers that they've had in the Honors College and throughout TCU. But that's what an honors experience and an honors college does for students. It changes who you are, how you think. It enriches the relationships that you develop with people, not just in your families or in your neighborhood, but also across the world. And it should make the world a better place.
I can't think of a better way to end our conversation tonight, Ron. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank all of you for being with us
Yeah,
as
thank
well.
you.
Ron, we got to do lunch soon. We got to get the follically challenged club back together.
I welcome that.
Okay, sounds good. Everyone, thank you so much. Join us in 2 weeks for the college tour at the same time, same channel. In the meantime, if you have any questions for us in the Office of Admission, you can call us at 817-257-7490 or email us at frogmail, FROGMAIL at tcu.edu. Have a wonderful evening. Good night and go
Good night,
Frogs.
everyone. Go